All right, welcome back. And today I've got the absolute pleasure of having Casey on my channel. Now, Casey, just so that I don't do anything silly and mispronounce your name wrong or misrepresent who you are and your story, why don't you take 60 seconds to give us a bit of an introduction on who you are and what your experience is with Google Ads?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks. I'll start by saying thank you for having me on. My name's Casey Gill, and I have been working with Google Ads for quite some time now, probably longer than I care to admit. But since the early days of when it started, I started off my journey at an e-commerce business in the United States, and we were one of the first businesses that were provided with a Google account rep when it was rolling out. So those early days were really interesting, trying to get our head around the concept, how that would work. Obviously, folks were relatively new at that stage to shopping online. I spent about the first 9 years of my role in e-com working on the business development side. So not just focused on Google Ads, but focused in on all aspects of the business, whether it was product merchandising, business development, all of that. And then relocated over to the UK. So had some experience doing some freelance work in the UK. I did work for an agency out of Bristol for a number of years, relocated to the Middle East for a short period of time, back to the UK, and now being in Australia. So I've had a lot of experience across the globe through agencies, running my own business, e-com, and now I am located in Melbourne. So working for a web.
You're literally the international woman of paid ads, we could call you. So, one quick question I want to ask. That Google rep that you mentioned, was that an in-person Google rep? So they would come out to the office? Yeah.
Yes,
and that's
from California.
Yeah, and that's how you can tell how long you've been in the industry. If you've ever met a Google rep in person, it did happen. And back in the days, it was the level of service you got was probably one of the biggest things I miss about Google Ads at the moment. But
yeah, and it was funny. We laugh. My colleagues and I were still in touch. All of us that kind of came up in that these stages of e-com, we're all still really close. We all still compare stories and talk about the good old days.
Yeah.
But we were recently really laughing about the fact that we used to be able to negotiate what we wanted to pay. And that's something that I suppose a lot of people haven't even, considered that was
even heard about. Yes. So anyway, right. we probably don't want to show our age too much. So let's jump on to the next question. But what I did want to start the conversation on is very much around conversion rate optimization. And I picked up on one of your statements as we were planning this interview where you said, I agree with this, ads won't magically fix a poor customer experience. So could you really just sort of talk about, for you, when you're taking on an account or reviewing an account, when it comes to the conversion rate optimization and the customer journey, what are the key things that you really look, or that you say would be the most important to work on to increase your conversion rates?
Absolutely. And that's a really good question. The very first thing that we do when we have a client approach us or a potential client approach us is we will actually go and spend some time looking at the website, doing a little mini audit, if you will, from the eyes of a customer. And one of the very first things that I look for personally is where the categorization is. What is the navigation looking like on the website? Thinking from the terms of how are people going to find the products? What are they going to be looking for? If there aren't basic category structures in place where we can send people for landing pages, that is a red flag straight away, a conversation point where we will talk to a client, say, okay, this is what we want to be focusing on. Where would you want to send them and how can we build that out? So that's the first step, is looking at just general UX. And this isn't something that's new. I mean, if you think back in terms of, focus groups, advertisers have always run focus groups. Focus group is thinking of conversion rate optimization. It's thinking about how you can improve, the general business. And that also ties in really closely to just basic SEO, making sure that structure is there. If somebody has a product or a service and the website is not looking like it's going to be user-friendly, we will be very honest and tell the client, go away. These are the things that we think that you need to fix before we even consider running ads.
I do like that, and I agree with that. The thing that we always look at is, does the website follow general website conventions, and little things like if you click on the logo, does that navigate you back to the home screen? Do you also look at other things like, or what's your view? Could you talk about things like authority markers, reviews, testimonials, and then even just the layout of getting the mix between text and imagery right? What are your sort of views or things that you look at there? Hello there, and I hope you're enjoying my latest interview. I just wanted to quickly let you know that all of these interviews are sponsored by my paid Google Ads community, which is called the Google Ads Mastery Community. I set this community up for one clear purpose, and that is so that I could provide people with direct Google Ads support, and we do this in three main ways. Firstly, we run weekly live calls, and these are live calls that are run in all different time zones so that we can get the support to you. And it's where you can actually ask myself and also highly skilled members of my Define Digital Academy team direct questions about your Google Ads campaigns. We then also run monthly masterclasses, and these are in-depth teachings for what you need for success with Google Ads. And they don't only cover things inside of the Google Ads dashboard, we also cover specific training around things like offline conversions and how to increase the performance of your landing pages. All the important things you need for true success with Google Ads. And above all else, we've got our Google Ads community feed. And this is where you can join well over 300 other like-minded professionals like you. And we've got Google Ads specialists, agency owners, and also direct business owners who are there supporting and helping each other with how to see the best success with Google Ads throughout the year. And the best thing about this community is that it's all at a really low price because you can get full access for less than the price of a cup of coffee every day. And that's why I set up this community, is so that you can get tailored Google Ads support for a very low price. Right now, we're going to get right back into the interview, but if you'd like to find out more information about how you could join and plus also get a lifetime discount to join my Google Ads Mastery community, just follow the link in the description below.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, we look at, the call to actions. Are there, easy, compelling call to action that are going to make me want to go further? Are the images appealing? Are they broken up? Because oftentimes you can see something that's really, really text heavy and maybe has a tiny image that is not vibrant or isn't well focused on the product or the service in hand. So those are absolutely things that we would be, looking at as well. And also just comparing competitors as well. So one of the things that we would do is go in and say, right, these are your competitors or people that we identify as showing up in the same search space as what you would be. And let's take a look and compare what you think might be working well, what we think might be working well, and we'll go from there. But especially on a product detail page, is having social proof. So things like having, good customer reviews, having usable benefits and USPs. Why does somebody want to make this product? We often will say, how do you make your product or your service sexy? I mean, that is, the most important thing, that a lot of people just get so involved in the day-to-day and all of the boring dot points about a product that they don't actually think why somebody would want it. How do they upsell it? How do you want it?
Great. So, and especially, I'm sure you have this problem come up a lot, because what we've spoken about there, for a lot of the audience, that would make sense. We've got a very, heavy Google Ads crowd. But where I think it would also be great to talk about is, how do you take a client on a journey who disagrees with with your viewpoints and thinks that their website and their whole conversion rate process or conversion customer journey is perfect?
That is a very good question. And we have run into actually a number of times. Oftentimes we will agree to run a trial period. So it may be that the client has one position on it. They still want to proceed because they're very adamant that, their sales team will be able to close the deal, or they're very adamant that they just want to get out there and test the market. So I'm aware that a lot of that might seem really basic, but it's amazing how many businesses don't actually put that into context. So so we can run some tests. We can put in and say, right, for the next 1 to 3 months, so depending on what the client's comfortable with, depending on what they want to spend, we can put in some tests. We can run some experiments for the client. And potentially, if the issue comes down to creative, we can even do some A/B splits with testing their creative, their content with what we recommend as well, and then coming back and doing an analysis on that. And then that will be part of the negotiation process if we decide to go forward. Yeah.
No, I like that. And we've obviously, I've encountered that same problem, and we deal with it the same way. We're essentially go, look, we're happy to run it, but we make our position known and very, very clear. And then that way it's just driven on the data. So then if the campaign is not working, at least our position is, hey, we said this probably wouldn't work. You wanted to push. But surprisingly, I've found that we've even had to document it in notes and in a report because 3 months later, they'll forget and they'll just blame the ad campaign. So the other thing I would add there is just make sure it's documented and very, very clear in a report or an initial strategy documentation that us as the agency or the freelancer I have a different opinion on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's key. And I think any Google Ads expert will agree that it is very important to have that communication. Communication is a huge part of our role.
Yeah.
It's not about sitting behind the scenes and running the data. It's about how do we clearly communicate that data, because anybody can regurgitate what a click-through is, what a conversion rate is, but without clearly understanding that data and being able to explain it to the customer or the client, there's no value there.
Yeah, I love what you're saying too, because for me, what I'm always pushing people to when we're talking about Google Ads or taking them through the Google Ads process is not just understanding what you're saying, the definition of click-through ratio, definition of conversion rate, but actually knowing what that data is telling you and where to optimize. So if you've got to what are you looking at? What's happening from there? Before we change subjects, I did want to ask about, are you seeing any emerging trends or data about the type of product imagery that is working best in terms of click-through ratio and also conversion rates for products? So
when you say type of imagery, do you mean
lifestyle images versus just pure product images? Are there any guidelines that you would generally walk into and then go, okay, this is a fashion label, so we are going to do this style of photo, or this is a more of a technical, like a phone accessory? Yeah. Do you have any sort of guidelines that you're running into with imagery?
Yes, absolutely, I do. And the very first thing that I'll say, which again might seem very obvious to a lot of people, but it happens. The very first thing I would say is that the creative that we're using for ads and for product needs to match what's on the website. We still get clients that will provide us with the beautiful and amazing imagery, and then you go to the website and it looks nothing like what is on the website. So to answer your question, lifestyle images, if we're running something like a Performance Max campaign, or if we are trying to emulate what they're running on social and they also have that imagery on the website, then I would say lifestyle images with a shot of product. That works really well for the types of companies and businesses that we're promoting right now. Obviously, if it's more of a service-based product, it needs to reflect some sort of action or some sort of aspiration of what that service is providing. And for product photos, if we're just talking about straight shopping, then those do need to be vibrant, bright, and also just tightly framed within the image.
Yeah.
One example that I'll give you just briefly before we move on is we have a client who is a manufacturer of a product, but they sell the product on their own website, but they also sell the product to big department stores. So places like David Jones, Myers, really well-known Australian shops, and also other specialist retailers. The problem that they found is that with the product photography is that all of these other retailers who arguably have a much bigger budget than they do were using the same images, they were using the same product description. So what this client did very cleverly was change the photographs. So use own photographs so that it differentiates the product from what other big retailers are doing. And that has worked really well. And I think that is a really, really smart move if you do see yourself, having products on loads of other websites as well.
Yeah. And you brought out one interesting point there that I would just like to highlight. And that is that depending on where the customer is joining you in your journey, you may need different sets of creatives. So, like what you're saying there about your shopping, it's just going to be more product-based. But if you're moving into a bit more of an outreach campaign, like a Performance Max, where you're trying to reach newer customers, especially if you've got it set it up that way, your lifestyle images are a different level of imagery and a different level of messaging. And that's where, we're spending a lot of time with our clients who are going through is making sure at all the different levels of the funnel where we're reaching people. We're also not only changing the different imagery and the assets, but we've got different messaging to match where they're at in their buying cycle. So yeah, I love everything that you've got to say there. So let's now jump on to, I want to talk about ROAS. And obviously for service-based, this would be, your CPA metrics. I liked your view here where you said, you don't want to be blindsided by ROAS as a single measurement of success. I think long-term value. So in your agency, when you're reviewing, or in your experience, when you're reviewing the balance between ROAS and outreach, what is the core metrics that you look at for a successful campaign that is beyond just the ROAS score?
There's a lot of times that's very driven by what the client goals and objectives are.
Yeah.
We do still use it as a metric that we report on because a lot of clients really like that. However, going back to the communication side of things that we were just talking about, it's really important to expand on that and say, look, this is the number that's showing up here. Here's a few reasons why this isn't the only number we're looking at. We're looking at changes to conversion rate. We're looking at overall performance. So a lot of people look at marketing efficiency ratio, or MER for short, and they will be then measuring what they spend across all of their channels, whether it be paid ads, on search or socials, any other channels that they're running, and then look at their overall revenue, because that's a much better gauge of performance. Because we know, especially in these days of having so much attribution, where we can see people are having loads of different touch points coming into the website, we know that every channel plays a role.
Yeah.
So ROAS is a really outdated way of measuring success because it doesn't show the whole picture.
Yeah. The other thing that I always really like to, I guess, question the owner about, I always like to spend a lot of time about getting to understand their business model. And the reason for that is, an example we've got is a client felt like they wanted a ROAS of about 500 to 600%. But when we really drilled down on it, the actual revenue in their business was more from an ongoing maintenance service. So when you bought this initial unit, you then signed into a 24-month maintenance plan. That's where the money was. So we even had to educate, say to the owner, well, how about we pull your ROAS back to 200% for the front-facing product? So I think sometimes even I would say as a Google Ads professional, don't really spend some time getting to understand the owner's business model, because sometimes they can be blindsided by the numbers of, I need 500, I need 600, where if you actually can really drill down and go, well, how does your business work? And is this a better option for you and their business?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And do you know what blows my mind still in this age is sometimes, we get a case where I ask a client, or we ask a client, what is your break even?
Yeah.
Wait, what do you need to break even? And they say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you think, how can you have gotten, how do you not know what your break point is? Because, we're not saying that we want to make that the goal to break even, but what that helps us do is that helps us understand, where we start. And it also is really important to look at different aspects of the business, because different aspects of the business, we're kind of getting into the territory of talking about profit as well. So we might as well.
No, definitely. Let's go. Yeah.
But it's understanding how different areas of the business drive different levels of revenue.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm talking from an e-commerce standpoint, you might have some regions of the country that are incredibly expensive to ship to. They're not cost effective at all. So number one, why would you be paying to advertise and send to regions that are not viable for you? But you also may have some products that actually, do you know what? I don't make a ton of margin on this product. However, it is an entry point to get people into my business. And then we know they'll come back and they'll repeat purchase. So the idea is that when you're looking at ROAS, it's a really short-term metric. You're thinking of getting people into the business that first time. And then it's the business's job, not the marketer's job. It's the business's job to wow that customer and get that customer coming back directly to them. So they have the option to get them in the newsletter. They have the option to market to them and however they deliver, whether it's an e-com product, whether it's a software, entice them back, keep that communication going. And the next time they're not coming through an ad, they're not clicking on an ad.
Yeah.
Maybe they will, but the idea is that we're focusing more on the lifetime value and the longer term benefit of paying for customers. So there's obviously a lot of things to take into consideration.
I've always found that for me, I've always gone, especially within a new relationship with a potential client or potential business, is it's always about, I see my job, especially over the first 90 days, is to learn as much as possible about that business, because a lot of the time business owners as well, and you know, I run my own business. I know you can just be in the struggle of just trying to get everything done. We need to get more sales, so let's get an ads campaign out. And it's partly, I see, if I can actually even slow them down and really have a long-term discussion, it really increases your value to them as well, which makes it, you got less chance of another agency coming to steal your client or them even looking elsewhere, because you kind of embed yourself as such an important part of their business. So yeah, I'm always big on, before we even talk anything about Google Ads, I want to understand their business. I want to understand how it works, what makes their revenue tick over. Let's now talk about video. And, you know, I think we both agree that video is really, really important. How do you get a customer who has a small budget and potentially no video assets? How do you take them on that journey of, one, seeing the value of video, and two, being able to test video?
Yeah, and this is so common, and it is actually the probably the easiest way to convince a client who doesn't have video to use video is to show them an automated Google video, which looks a bit like a outdated PowerPoint slideshow in most cases. So
done by a year 5 student, yeah.
I know. Joking aside, it's that is a quick way to get them to realize that they want to create their own, but. In all seriousness, taking them through the journey of how they shop, it just reminding clients who are so in their day-to-day business, it's reminding them of the opportunity that they have to use their product images, to use their lifestyle images that are on their website. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as easy as just piecing together. We all have free tools. We all have access to things like, and I'm not suggesting that you want to go and build your video on Canva, but we can do that relatively easy if the client wants to do it themselves. We do offer creative services at our agency as well. And that's something that we can factor in when we are working with a client who maybe doesn't have that, or maybe they have a YouTube channel, but the YouTube videos are long form or not ideal. What we can do is take the raw video footage, or recommend to the client to take raw video footage and just cut some pieces up and get started. I think the most important thing is having those different dimensions. So a lot of folks will send a landscape video without realizing that they actually need to have the vertical and the square formats as well.
Yeah. So, that's obviously the process of getting video up. How are you using video campaigns or video in your total Google Ads strategy at the moment?
Yeah, so at the moment, what we do is tend to take the videos, if we've got sale periods, that's a really heavy time that clients like to ramp up, let's say a month or 2 months before they know that they have this really big sale period coming on. We'll get the videos going live. We've actually been testing demand gen a lot more as well. And to be perfectly honest, that tends to be my go-to now, more so than YouTube campaign, because I really like the results that I've seen for clients that are using that in conjunction with performance map campaigns and shopping campaigns as well. So I'm obviously speaking from an e-commerce side of things. Moment. That's what works really well for e-com. I can't speak to the lead gen side for myself personally, but it is just something that we've found it works when we can measure those results.
So with demand gen, when you're running in conjunction with Performance Max and other campaigns, are there any specific settings that you generally use, or specific structures that you use for your demand gen campaign to get the best results?
Yes. So one of the things that I really like about demand gen is, there's 2 things that I like about demand gen that are different from other campaign types. One of them is the ability to target the ad group by location. So having it within the same campaign, if we want to focus on a particular state or on a particular radius around a city, what we find, or what I have seen work really well in the recent campaigns that I've run, are the video campaign. We have tested both video campaigns on their own and then also video plus feed, and that works really well in conjunction. We had better results from the video plus feed campaign, but I have tested using carousel, which is obviously just more static images, but also testing videos in a YouTube campaign separately, running that next to demand gen. We still see that demand gen, when you look at the view through conversions, when you look at the overall result, you can see the uplift, especially if you are targeting states or city radiuses, you can see the uplift for those regions in other campaigns.
I was going to ask that question. So for you with demand gen, is the more important metric view through conversions or conversions?
Overall, well, we measure view through conversion because we can see that people are obviously engaging with that. We know that it's more middle of funnel. So when we're looking at middle of funnel campaigns, I mean, again, it depends on the client. We do have some clients that say, no, we really want to focus just on conversion. But I think from a middle of funnel type of approach where we have supporting campaigns also running alongside that, we're measuring the overall conversions that are coming into the account because we can see that those are improved based on the targeting of demand gen region.
So it'd potentially be a situation where when you look at the demand gen line, the ROAS there may be lower, but when you take that into account of its uplift on the total account, the performance is going higher. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. That's correct.
No.
We actually have a really interesting, I can't talk about it right now, but we have a really interesting case study that will be coming relatively soon in conjunction with Google on how one of our clients did amazingly well over the Christmas period, Black Friday period, just by running demand gen. And these results speak for themselves. So I'll leave that there. That will be something that will be visible relatively soon.
Yeah, no, it's one thing that I'm really push people on is too often people can judge a campaign type by its performance by itself without taking into account the other types of accounts. So I've got another account at the moment that we've been scaling up, and the Performance Max is where we spend the most money, and it gets I think it's a 2.3 ROAS. They need a ROAS of 200% to make it work for them in their current stage of the business. But then we have supporting search and shopping campaigns, and our shopping campaign is now hitting over the last 30 days a 12% conversion rate and generating more. Yeah, and it's because it's the way that we've structured it all together. So I'm really big on you've got to look at the account as a whole and think about using the different campaigns and not judging a single campaign just by the line that you're seeing at the campaign line.
Yeah, well, I suppose in some ways it's like what we were talking about with ROAS. It's like we're taking into account the more of a Google Ads account. We're looking at the overall results. But you actually just said something here that I want to ask what your thoughts are on it. Yeah. But the change recently, maybe 2 to 3 months ago, where Google is prioritizing shopping campaigns slightly different to the way that they used to in comparison with Performance Max. The Performance Max used to trump shopping campaigns. Now that is more of a level playing field. Have you noticed a difference in your shopping campaign?
I have, but what I would also say is the way that I utilize Performance Max is I have some really strong ways that I use it. I'll start, especially for e-commerce, search and shopping, get them working. When I introduce Performance Max, I'm introducing it to only bid on new customers anyway. I'm also only using, e-commerce is easy because I'm only using transaction goals, but I'm also taking out brand exclusions. So even the way that I use it in Performance Max, even before that change, it was swaying towards shopping anyway. But I definitely have found an uptick and we've even noticed some members in my community who are just starting out. I found that people who I would say probably this time last year, starting out on shopping was hard to get it to work. Whereas now we've noticed a really big switch where shopping is generally giving best results for brand new campaigns.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. We've noticed an improvement in the shopping performance as well. Like you, we do structure the Performance Max campaign. I mean, I know that we're not getting into the realm of optimization, but in terms of looking at the custom label ability to segment the campaign based on that, and again, just what we were speaking about before, is looking at profit margin. So there might be some ability to segment based on, your high margin, your medium margin, and your low margin. And then you take your consideration into what your ROAS needs to be for each one of those, or your overall results need to be for each one of those. So I think there's a lot of ways to look at that. But at the end of the day, they all support each other, these campaign types. And video, just again, going back to it, is, if you're getting the demographics right, if you're targeting the right segment, if you're using your data in the right way to promote those videos, then the results should be strong.
Yeah. Hey, Casey, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. And for anyone watching, in the description below, I'm going to put a section where you can get in contact with Casey and reach out to her. So thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. And it's always good to have another Aussie, Aussie, Brit, US, UAE on the channel. So we've covered everything today.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I really appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too.